Excited to have you here, and we are gaveling in our very first items for day 2 of our March Commission meetings. Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Norton. Commissioner Alvarado.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Commissioner Eager. Commissioner Eager. Commissioner Grisby.
Here. Aye.
Commissioner Guardino.
Virtually present.
Thank you. Commissioner Inman. Commissioner Inman. Commissioner Kehoe.
Here.
Commissioner Liu.
Here.
Commissioner Martinez.
Present.
Commissioner Tavaloni. Chair Norton.
Present.
Senator Newman. Assemblymember Friedman. We are told that there is a session this morning, so they will both be joining us later. Let me go right back. Commissioner Eager, did we get you located? I see her on the webinar, but no response yet. Commissioner Inman.
Yes, here.
Thank you. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. And let me refine my welcome to ladies and gentlemen and gender non-conforming, because I want to be inclusive for everyone. And with that, Douglas, could you please read the instructions for today's meeting?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome to day 2 of the March 2021 virtual CTC meeting. The CTC exists to make transportation planning, funding, and policy more understandable and accountable. Our meetings normally take place in diverse locations around the state so the commissioners can see firsthand the variety of infrastructure issues around California. However, containment measures surrounding COVID have required us to adjust to a webinar format. Please bear with us should we encounter any technical challenge. The Commission's meeting agenda is located under the Handouts tab or on our website and can be downloaded and saved during the meeting. It can also be found on the you can also find it on the Commission website. If you have questions or issues with your technology, please use the Questions tab and staff will help you out. Commissioners, should you have any questions or comments during the meeting, please let us know by raising your hand or otherwise get our attention on camera and wait for the chair to call on you. You can also send inquiries and comments through the Questions tab that can be read to presenters and the audience on your behalf. Please mute your microphone except when you intend to speak to minimize outside noise and feedback. We will do our best to call on each of you in turn. We hope that you will turn on your camera when speaking if you have one. Because this meeting is not an in-person meeting, every vote will need to be a roll call vote. Staff will group items for votes to help save time. Would ask that no commissioner speaks a second time on any one motion until everyone who wishes to speak a first time has done so. If you're on the agenda to make a presentation, please do your best to be succinct. We hope that you also turn on your camera during your presentation if you have one. Members of the public, we welcome comments from the public. For participants joining us through the GoToWebinar system, please find the webinar panel located typically at the right-hand side of your screen. There you'll find Audio, Questions, and Handouts tab. Under the Audio tab, attendees will have to choose to listen via computer or telephone option. Should you prefer the computer option, please ensure the appropriate box is selected. If you choose the phone call option, please select the corresponding box and dial the phone number, access code, and audio pin as directed by the automated system. Please note that if the audio pin is not entered, you will remain in listen-only mode and will be unable to speak to the Commission should you have a comment. As a reminder, each registered attendee is provided a unique link and phone number to access the webinar. These cannot be shared with other participants as they are registered to specific attendees. There are 2 options for participants to provide comments on the agenda. Using the Questions tab, type in the agenda number you are commenting on and your comment. Commission staff will read the comment on your behalf. Alternately, you may click on the hand icon to indicate you wish to make a comment. You'll then be unmuted and called upon in order to make your comment. Please make sure to state your name and affiliation prior to voicing your remarks. Please do your best to be concise with your comments. Also, please make sure that your comments add new information. If you agree with a comment of a previous speaker, simply make that statement. Since we often have many speakers, we ask that you make your point as succinctly as possible. A timer may be displayed on the screen if the comments begin to run long. You will not be able to be on camera when making your comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And with that, we will start with the information calendar, items 28 to 31. Tim Sobelman, up 28 through 47. Tim?
Thank you, Chair Norton. Sorry about that. I had to get my camera going. Let's see. Commissioners, items 28 through 47 are information items deemed acceptable and have no issues raised by staff. Therefore, individual items will not be presented unless specifically requested by a commissioner. Any questions?
No.
Please note there was a correction to item 39 as documented on the change list. That concludes presentation of the information calendar.
Thank you. And those do not require a motion to be approved, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So with that, we are going to, hearing no public comment on these items, Justin? Correct.
No, Chair Norton, no public comment at this time.
Great. We do not need a motion, so we'll now move to the entire consent calendar, and I'd like to recognize Chairwoman Inman. I'm Chairwoman, former Chairwoman Inman, Commissioner Inman.
I was like, whoa. Yeah, no, I'm happy to have passed that.
I just went back to 2019 for a second. It's day 2. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wish to recuse myself from item 65 as my employer, Majestic Realty, has holdings in close proximity to the 5760. So I'll recuse myself.
Okay. And in doing so, you are recusing yourself from the entire consent calendar. So, because we're taking these all together.
Okay, that's all right.
Okay. So, Douglas, can you confirm that Commissioner Inman's audio and video are off?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
so that Commissioner Inman can participate, I'd just like to make a motion to approve item 65 alone and then bring a second motion for the rest of the consent calendar.
Second, Martinez.
Okay. Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Grisby,
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino,
Aye.
Commissioner Inman, Commissioner Kehoe,
Aye.
Commissioner Liu,
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez, Commissioner Tavaloni, Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the item is approved.
Thank you. And with that, we will go back to our consent calendar and take items 48 through 67, accepting 65 because 65 has already been approved. Can we have a motion on the consent calendar?
So moved.
Commissioner Eager. Okay, Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Excuse me, just briefly, I just wanted to make note that there were 3 changes to item 55 as 3 resolutions of necessity were withdrawn prior to the CTC meeting.
Okay, so we are going to move the consent calendar with the 3 changes in item 55 noted by the commission.
Thank you.
Can we have a motion to move the consent calendar accepting 65 since it's already been approved and with 55 with the 3 changes as Tim Sobelman just highlighted for us?
So moved with those changes.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Grisby,
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino,
Aye.
Commissioner Inman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe,
Aye.
Commissioner Liu,
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Mr. Tavaloni. Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the item is approved.
Okay, we are taking items 68 and 69 together, and 68 is a timed item for 9 this morning. So Casey, please present these items to us.
Thank you and good morning, Commissioners. Tab 68 is an information item. This is the hearing of a proposed amendment to the 2019 Urban and Rural Section 5310 Enhanced, excuse me, Enhanced Mobility of Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities Program. The amendment proposes to increase the apportionment amount California received as a result of the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act of 2021. On December 27, 2020, the Coronavirus Relief Act was signed into law and included $50 million for the Section 5310 program nationally. California's apportionment was $1,374,686. The Coronavirus Relief Act funds are designated towards administrative operational support. On January 25, 2021, the department released a survey to the 2019 5310 program subrecipients to assess their COVID-19 impacts and inquire if they want to opt in to receive additional federal act funding. 12 agencies in the rural area and 26 agencies in the small urban area responded expressing interest in the funds. Of the $1,374,683 increased by federal act funds, $979,535 will be split evenly among small urban area apportionments, and $395,149 will be split evenly among the rural area apportionments. The agencies that chose to opt out indicated they did not have a need for federal act funds. The 5310 program's goal is to meet the specialized needs of the elderly and/or disabled persons for whom mass transportation services are unavailable, insufficient, or inappropriate. Prior to adopting the amendment to increase the 2019 program of projects for the FTA Section 5310 program, the Commission is required to conduct a public hearing and incorporate any changes that are recommended during the public hearing. Madam Chair, staff recommends that you begin the hearing.
Okay, let the hearing officially begin. Are there any public comments on this hearing?
Chair Norton, there's no public comment at this time.
Okay. With that, commissioners, do you have any comments on this item? Okay, hearing none, we can close the public hearing. And can we entertain a motion on items 60 and 69?
I think it's only 69. I'll move item 69.
Second Martinez.
Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Davis.
Aye.
Commissioner Eager.
Aye.
Commissioner Grisby.
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino. Commissioner Guardino? We can visually see you saying aye. We'll mark you down. Commissioner Inman.
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe.
Aye.
Commissioner Liu.
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez.
Aye.
Commissioner Tabaloni. Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the motion is approved.
Thank you very much. And now we will go to item 70. John Prey.
Yep. Good morning, Commissioners. Item 70 is an action item to amend Resolution G1611 as shown in attachment A in the book item. This existing resolution delegates Caltrans the authority to allocate funds to emergency condition response projects, which is important because this allows Caltrans to respond promptly and effectively to sudden and unexpected emergencies. The amended resolution will address updates to enhance Caltrans' implementation of the program, as well as enhance the Commission's oversight of the program. Staff has worked with Caltrans and coordinated these amendments with their programming and their maintenance staff. And so with that, staff recommends approval of the amended resolution.
Okay, commissioners, is there anyone who wishes to speak on this item? Okay, and seeing that there are no public comments, could we have a motion on item 70?
So moved.
Okay, a second.
Second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor, please read the roll. Douglas?
Madam Chair, could you confirm who made that second? I didn't see.
Kehoe.
Thank
Yes.
you. Commissioner Alvarado,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Grisby,
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino. For some reason, we still can't hear you, Commissioner Guardino, but I did see you. Thank you. Commissioner Inman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe,
Aye.
Commissioner Liu,
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez,
Aye.
Commissioner Tavaloni, Chair Norton.
Aye.
Chair, the item is approved.
Thank you very much. Item 71 has been withdrawn, so we'll move to item 72, Senate Bill 1 Semi-Annual Report. And Douglas, you'll let us know when our ex officio members have joined us, yes?
Yes, we will keep an eye out for him.
Thank you so much. Matthew, we look forward to your presentation.
Good morning, Chair Norton and Commissioners. Tab 72 is an information item containing the Senate Bill 1 Semi-Annual Progress Report for the period from July 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. I would like to introduce Angel Pyle, the Caltrans SB1 Program Manager, who will actually be presenting this item. And Doug or Brandy may have to move her over to panelist because I did not see her. Oh, there she is. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. So good morning, Chair Norton, Executive Director Weiss, commissioners, and also I would like to say a special welcome to the new commissioners. My name is Angel Pyle, and I have the pleasure of being the Senate Bill 1 Program Manager for the department. Next slide, please. So I'm here to give a very brief update on many of the SB1 programs under the Commission's purview. I will provide a program update including status of programs, completions, and will also have a preview of the items to look forward to in the future. Next slide, please. So just as a general reminder, this report is required semi-annually by the Accountability and Transparency Guidelines and covers the Congested and Trade Corridor programs, the Local Partnership and Active Transportation programs, as well as the SHOP. I should note that this report only covers projects adopted in the first cycle, and it does not cover the projects that were recently adopted in December of 2020. Those will be included in our next semi-annual report. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'd like to highlight that this commission has approved over 1,600 allocations and $3.3 billion for the non-SHOP programs, and the commission has approved over 340 SHOP construction allocations in excess of $9 billion since the passage of SB1. These allocations have created over 150,000 jobs, and I just want to say that I sincerely appreciate the commission's role and support in this particular effort. These are a lot of great things going on. Next slide, please. All right, so many of the projects in these programs are bold and transformative in nature, and they take time to complete. So I'm happy to report that we are starting to see some of these projects complete, and there are a number of deliverables in the works which we'll highlight in subsequent reports. For SHOP projects, I'm happy to report the department is making diligent progress towards the SB1 goals, so that's specifically with the 4 core assets. I'd also like to note that this is a partial update and a comprehensive update, including the progress for fiscal year 2021, will be provided by Mr. Mike Johnson in the performance benchmark report, which will likely be at the June commission meeting. I'm also happy to report that the active transportation program has delivered over 300 miles of bike paths, 83 miles of sidewalks, and over 9,000 crosswalks and other improvements supporting other means of transportation. So we've already discussed the importance and significance of the active transportation program within this meeting, and I'm really quite proud of the accomplishments that we're seeing in these programs. So there are also a number of other improvements which are underway, and they are shown on the slide there, and I'm really excited to be bringing those updates to you in the future. Next slide, please. So a couple of things looking forward in the future is that I look forward to continual project completions and reporting outcomes to the Commission, which benefit all Californians and also travelers in California. As a brief reminder, Caltrans works with both local agencies and Commission staff to ensure successful projects, and we appreciate the work and dedication of the Commission staff. So you are you have a very wonderful staff, and we appreciate all of their diligence, and they're extremely sharp. So we really appreciate that, and also the relationships that we have with the Commission. In the future, we look forward to highlighting specific projects as well as oversighting the recently adopted programs. And I'm also happy to answer any questions you may have. So I've tried to keep this extremely brief in the interest of time.
Well, thank you so much for this presentation. I have a couple of questions, but I'd like to find out if my colleagues have some questions they'd like to pose to you today.
Sure.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to say something if I could.
Please.
Thank you. And this has less to do with the update, although it's very great to see, and more to do about something I said yesterday I think might have been misinterpreted, misheard. I made a comment about the difference between what we say and what we do, and I wasn't, I think, sensitive enough to the fact that sometimes when I say something, it's heard differently from what I intend. And when it comes to these projects and what we're doing with SB1, my intent was to say that we all agree that we are approaching transportation differently nowadays, and that we are in the process of turning this entire system of transportation infrastructure and funding and projects around in very significant ways. And in fact, this update kind of shows that, especially with the ATP progress that we've made to date. And I think that what I said, at least I've been told, and I appreciate kind of the heads up about this, was heard as saying that I was criticizing the Commission for not being consistent in what it funds and does. I didn't intend that at all. What I really wanted to say was that I was very excited to be part of the process of approaching transportation differently and being part of that transition. So I apologize to anyone I might have offended yesterday, and hope that this clarification helps. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Liu. This is really appreciated. I think we are making extremely big strides. And actually, that was going to the nature of the conversation and questions I had for you. And that was with the information you have about what we have done. And if you could go back to the ATP slides and some others, because what I was wondering is, as we're starting to look at CAPDI goals, how are we keeping metrics here about the ATP projects and what they are achieving in terms of reduced VMT, how the things we have invested in and the multimodal system we are investing in is working? Can you tell us a little bit about that? And then my second question was about the projects that you have and that you're highlighting. Do you have these mapped for elected officials and the public to look at?
Sure. Let me take your last question first. So in terms of the project mapping, so we do have an SB1 website. It's rebuildingca.ca.gov. And all of the projects within the SB1 portfolio are mapped on that particular website. We have recently overhauled the website, so we've tried to give it a new look and feel that's a little bit refreshed. So if anybody has any comments, questions, concerns on that, please let me know, because we're happy to respond to anything. And we're also continually making changes and updates and adding additional information. We have a lot in store for that website in terms of adding dashboards and also adding other metrics and useful bits of information. So please be patient with us, because all of those are in progress right now. So we are shifting that look. One of the things on Rebuilding CA is a project list, and you'll see a project map on there that's identified by program. You can also search on that with a a variety of different filters, whether it's city, county, implementing agency, but also legislative district is available on there as well. So if you find anything on there that you have questions about or anything like that, we'd be happy to open that up and to talk about that. We are looking to make some other changes potentially to that project map in the future because while everybody here has a certain perspective, maybe members of the public don't know exactly what type of program they might be looking for. So we really want to make sure that this website is informative and useful for anybody that will be going on the website to say, hey, I want to see bike and ped projects in this particular area. How do I do that? They may not know that that's called active transportation. So we really want to make sure that we're supporting the accessibility of all of that information, regardless of what program knowledge somebody may have. So we are working on that. We're going to have an interim solution up in the very near future, and we'll have something a little bit more comprehensive down the line. But I hope that answers your question in terms of mapping.
You know, that's terrific. And I think that it's also really important as we look at complete streets as a part of the shop, that people might not understand that something that seemed more like an ATP project is actually being funded with shop funds. And so really knowing like this may be a bike lane or maybe some other component of a shop project, but still is going to the very things that we've been talking about that seem encompassing under ATP. So this is really, really helpful. And I'm trying to make sure that the public knows all the things that you're doing with this site. You helped us see what you were doing with that site previously and the changes you were going to make, but this is very, very important so that we can highlight to people what's happening and how SB1 funds are being used for a variety of modalities. So this is very, very helpful.
Sure, thank you. Also, in answer to your first question, as far as some of the connection points between perhaps maybe ATP and our VMT goals, there are certainly significant correlations there. I'd like to take that back to do a little bit more analysis in terms with some of our local assistance partners and some others to make sure that we're clearly articulating some of those goals. So I'd love to come back maybe at a future commission meeting to really more thoroughly answer that question for you.
That's great. This is great. Commissioners, do you have any other questions on this? I think this is super helpful as we're looking to present this comprehensive investment. I see that Commissioner Inman has a comment.
Thank you, Chair Inman. Can we go back to the ready for construction or ready, the last slide we just had up? So this is Fran, the broken record, wanting more grade separations, focus on the federal level and also hopefully in our state, because as we try to move more and more freight and more people on the rail, we really need those grade separations. And so is this telling me that we haven't done one grade separation yet? And
so not necessarily. So I would want to go back and do a couple more checks just to make sure that that could be a part of a package potentially. And maybe that grade separation that was completed isn't necessarily reflected on here right away. There's also grade separations completed in a myriad of other programs, also under local assistance as well. So there's other grade separations that are completed that would help support maybe like those permit upgrades where we're increasing the height of a bridge or something like that. So there's lots of those types of things happening in other programs as well. I don't want this to convey that that's the only one that we're doing, because I don't think that that is the case. There is more going on and happening with that, but we will have some of those in the works. There's other grade separations in the current SB1 portfolio, as well as the Cycle 2 projects that were just adopted. So we could do some additional work on that and come back to you to make sure that we have all of that encompassed as well, if you'd like.
Well, just because, you know, we have Alameda Corridor East, which has now been woven into the San Gabriel Valley COG, was really a best practices example given to the US DOT of a laser focused Joint Powers Authority that was really diligent, and they did a lot of work under our 1B transportation dollars and really delivered for all of us in terms of getting those projects done. And I think the list was totally like 55 grade separations. So when I see this with one grade separation in the great state of California, that causes me concern. So I think if we're gonna, maybe it is a category we want to shine some light on. I'm hoping with our federal ask that we're all asking for more. Historically, we've had like 100 million in, I think it's Section 130 funds for the whole entire United States, and we could spend that on one grade separation. So I would just like to see
I don't know if my connection was cutting out or not. I think I missed some of that audio, but I want to make sure I capture that.
All of our connections were cutting out.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. Okay. Well, I want to make sure I capture or it's captured what she's looking for so that we can come back and report that or ensure that we report that.
Yeah. I had a second question because I haven't seen my colleagues notify me or raise hands. But I wanted to ask also, given that there's a lot of work now with the federal government and going out to RFP and looking for other projects, there's a lot of need for there to be timely information, especially mapped like this, to talk about, what else is happening in the ecosystem as people are applying for projects. And I was wondering how you are identifying projects in the pipeline and when you're going to have the $2 billion in projects that we adopted in December mapped out, because there's an earmark process and there's a lot of other things on the federal side that we want to make sure we're giving some timely information for applicants from around the state.
Sure. The very short answer to your question is twofold. So we are looking to map the projects at the best time possible. Sometimes it's when it is allocated or adopted. However, if it's adopted and if I'm a consumer looking at the website, sometimes it's a really long time until I see anything with that. So we want to make sure that what we're giving is timely and that we're also very clear in how we are mapping that and what information is being mapped. So to your point of making sure though that the most recent information is available, we can have the cycle 2 projects. We're in the process of adding those now, but we can accelerate that to make sure that it's very timely for folks that might be looking to apply for projects. So we can have that mapped within the next couple of weeks on those cycle 2 projects.
And you'll let us know when we can promote that on our website and others as people are looking to us to assist.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we can get those mapped. Also, the recently the ATP program that was adopted, we can have that up in maybe about 3 weeks. I don't want to overpromise there, but I think we can aim for about 3 or 4 weeks there to have that mapped. And then also in terms of the shop projects, so that's the other part to your question as far as what's in the pipeline. There is the project book that is online that Mike Johnson has referred to. So we're also looking at different ways that we can connect those points together so that folks can see what's in the pipeline in the future there. So we'll be looking to make some of those connection points as well. But that information is available online.
Thank you so much. I want to give Commissioner Inman the ability to reiterate her question and comments because her internet was cutting in and out. So Fran, do you want to try again?
I will. So sorry about that. I thought I had taken care of this today. But anyway, just really want to encourage us to highlight our success around grade separations and use that as a tool. I'm hoping that as we all lean in to the U.S. New transportation bill, we will hopefully expand the federal investment. I think it's Section 130 funds. But I was saying that previously we'd had 100 million across the whole United States, and we could spend that on just one grade separation. So I think we have a great track record, great example of some of our agencies really doing great work around grade separations. And as we attempt to move more freight and more passengers on rail, it's just crucial to be able to deliver those to our communities.
Thank you so much, Fran. Commissioner Grisby, did you have any comments you'd like to make on this item?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. So with that, Justin, do we have any public comment on this item?
Chair Norton, there's no public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. And with that, since this is an informational item, we'll move on to item 73. But Angel, I want to thank you for a very thorough presentation, and same with Matthew. Thank you so much. This is going to be very, very helpful in our work with the state and the federal government to leverage these funds even better.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay, with that, let's go to item 73, Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee and Program Update.
Good morning, Commissioners. For this road charge item, I'm going to show you a slide and then update you on the Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee. And then Lauren Prahota from Caltrans will give you an update. So what you see on the screen is a gas tax revenue estimate slide. And what this is based on a study from the Mineta Transportation Institute. Yesterday, you saw a slide from Caltrans that I believe was based on gas tax estimates and consumption, based on consumption. And the Mineta study did look at consumption, but it also looked at different possible impacts to the gas tax depending on the number of zero emissions vehicles, including freight vehicles that are on the roads over the next 20 years. And so as you can see, depending on they had 6 scenarios total in their study, and depending on the number of zero emissions vehicles, there could be varying level of impacts to the gas tax. And at the same time, we also included the estimated construction cost index increases. So at the same time that construction costs are increasing, the fuel tax could be decreasing. And one thing to note too is that when Mineta did their study, they based their estimates on available revenues, but they didn't have actual revenues. So the starting point of their estimates for the gas tax was a little low. But the main point of their study, the percent change in revenue, is valid. So we wanted to show you this slide because it points to the need to really be thinking about road charge as an alternative funding mechanism. It's very timely given where we're at with this transition to zero emissions. And one way that the Commission can support these efforts is through the Technical Advisory Committee. So the Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee has been meeting, and we have some recommendations for focus areas for that committee, which we as CTC staff support. One is that CTC staff and the Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee continue to support SB 339. That's the legislation that would authorize a pilot to test revenue collection for a road charge. Another one is that we work with the Mineta Transportation Institute to research different rate options. There's a lot of thinking that needs to go into a road charge rate to make sure that it's the best rate possible. So the Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee should be focusing on that. We recommend that the TAC continue to think about privacy and data security. We have some privacy experts on the TAC, and that the TAC continue to look at major implementation milestones for what's needed as we think about starting to implement a road charge. And we also would like to recommend that we as CTC staff and the TAC be partners together at the table with Caltrans and CalSTA as they develop their research plan and their and as they work on the federal grant that they recently received, which I'm sure Lauren will talk about. But those are that actually concludes the actions that we're recommending that the TAC focus on. And with that, I will turn it over to Lauren Prahota to provide her update. Go ahead, Lauren.
Good morning. Am I coming through?
You are, thank you.
Excellent. Well, good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Executive Director Weiss. Pleasure to be with you here this morning. My name is Lauren Prahota, and I am the Road Charge Program Manager for Caltrans. And what I'm going to be doing today is just providing you an update on where the program has been and where we're looking to go, and just give you a sense both of some specific projects we're working on and also kind of where the overall program is. Next slide, please. So I want to start with what we've been doing over the past year or so. In the fall of 2019, as we brought on some great new leadership for both the department and CalSTA, we sat down with a new road charge team and at the direction of Secretary Kim, thought about, okay, what do we need to think about for this program as a whole? Where are we and where do we need to go? So we had a couple of things going on last year. First at the top, you'd see preparing for our current pay at the pump demonstration, which I'll get back to in a moment. But then at the programmatic level, what we did was took some time to do kind of a research scan of the state of the research of, whether our pilot, other pilots in other states, other national research, what is currently understood about a potential road charge system, and then what are the questions that we still need to figure out in order to have a viable program for California. So we kind of did a gap analysis through the middle of the year, looking at those questions that we still needed to have, and we presented those to the TAC at their September meeting. And at a high level, what we found was that overall, the general feasibility, the general structure of a road charge system, it has been reasonably tested across multiple states and kind of agreed upon. And what we really need to look at now are some questions around the edges that pertain specifically to California or specifically to certain situations. So for example, the international border with Mexico is an issue that we need to specifically work through, or things like that. So taking those questions over the fall, we developed a work plan to see how those could be answered. And we presented that to the TAC in their February meeting. Next slide, please. The other thing we did over the course of the last year was to continue communications research. We feel it's really important to continue to feel how Californians react to the idea of a road charge and what their priorities are for a potential system. So we've been doing some ongoing research, had focus groups, some polling and things like that. We've used some of those concepts from that to develop our website, which is a screenshot of that here, which is www.caroadcharge.com. All of our reports and information are on that site, but it's meant to be something that's accessible to the public to kind of explain what this concept is. You can also go on there. We have a calculator where you can actually input your specific vehicle and the numbers of miles that you drive and get a comparison of what you probably pay under the gas tax versus what you would pay under a road charge. So we hope that it's a very useful and educational tool for the public. There's connections to work in other states, national work and research. So it's very excited to have that update there. And we continue to monitor and do some more communication research just because we feel it's so important to understand the priorities of Californians. So we make sure that this system works for all Californians. Next slide, please. So getting to specific projects, currently we are in the middle of our active pilot, what we call our 4-phase demonstration. We kicked it off in January. And the point of this pilot is building on recommendations from the final report from our original 2017 pilot, really looking at user experience. How can we make the user experience as easy as possible? This I know is a very important point specifically to Jim Medaffer of, can we make it as easy as paying the pump the way we do the gas tax right now? So we're exploring a couple different technologies and partnering road charge with those. The first is paying at the pump or charge point. How would that work? Next is usage-based insurance, then ride sharing, transportation network companies, and then finally autonomous vehicles. We're very happy that Commissioner Liu is participating in the pay at the pump phase, as are several TAC members. Secretary Kim is participating in the usage-based insurance phase, and several members of CTC staff are participating in those as well, which we really appreciate all of their interest. We are also currently working on a pilot with the state of Oregon through RUC West, which is a consortium of 17 Western states that are investigating the feasibility of road charge. And what that's working on is issues of interoperability between states. It'll be testing a central clearinghouse model that basically can take the inputs from different states. If you're driving through multiple states, it'll capture the mile in each state, and then apply the different tax rates and send the funding to the appropriate state. So that's a very interesting project and very important to a multi-state system. And then finally, as Hannah mentioned, we're very excited that just last week, FHWA awarded us an additional grant for another pilot, what we are referring to as our public-private roads pilot. And this project is going to be testing the feasibility of GPS technology to get down to the level of differentiating between public and private roads in a way that can be relied upon in a potential road charge system. We definitely have citizens in our state who may spend a lot of time driving on roads that are not public, and we don't want to be charging them for that. So we're hoping to investigate this technical aspect, but we also hope to use it as a tool to engage the agricultural community to understand further impacts to them by a road charge, potentially also Native American tribes in the state. So we are very excited that grant has been awarded, and we'll be getting into the procurement details of that shortly. So a lot of work going on this year on the pilot front. Next slide, please. So getting back to just the status of the program as a whole, we took those key questions that we still need to answer and talked through with the work plan. This is what we presented to the TAC of kind of the general timeline of the work that we have before us. So you can see on here we have different aspects of tools that we're going to use to answer those questions. Some of it we're partnering with the CTC staff. Some of it we'll be doing through our pilots. Again, partnerships with RUC West. UC Berkeley is doing some research for us right now on further impacts to disadvantaged communities, things like that. We expect that work will wrap up mid to late 2023, and then we'll have a good sense of where we are. I also note on here we have a potential national pilot. There's a lot of discussion in Congress right now about a national pilot, a lot of interest. So we think it's likely that that's going to happen sometime in the next few years. Next slide, please. So the administration is committed to developing and implementing a road charge program that is tailored for California. And we have been getting a lot of questions. How does this fit in with the governor's executive order on the sale of gas-powered vehicles and the ban on that by 2035? So as we look ahead to a potential future road charge program, there's a couple of things we're thinking about. Based on the experience of other states that are starting to implement some programs, and given the size and complexity of the state of California, we expect that the legislature would want to explore a phased approach to potential implementation of a road charge program. Such a rollout could likely be accomplished over a 10 to 12 year period. One of the things that working with the TAC, they have highlighted an interest in utilizing the state fleet as a testing ground, a pilot for a road charge program. Knowing that we have this body of about 35,000 vehicles that not necessarily involving the public, but could could be a good testing ground for a road charge system. And I think Caltrans agrees with the potential of the state fleet, but we think that the value in using them could potentially be that, first stage of implementation, whatever the legislature approves, testing that out, as there are many forms that a road charge system could take. So I think the last point I want to make is that in terms of revenue implications, our feeling is that as long as zero emission vehicles are transitioned to a road charge before 2035, there will not likely be long lasting impacts to revenue. So that's kind of a glimpse of the look ahead that we're starting to think about, again, where we are and where we're going with the program. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, I want to thank you because this is a very, very timely item. I did want to call on Commissioner Liu to talk about his experience on the task force and talk a little bit about how this dives in with the federal program, because we're hearing more and more about this, and it's coming up in every single one of our congressional briefings. So, Dr. Liu.
Thank you, Chair Norton, and thank you, Hannah and Lauren, for the update. I always have to first put this in context of the timing of how this happened. Chair Norton said, "Hey, why don't you chair the road charge TAC?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, sure. That doesn't sound like too much work. And we're going to go at this slow and methodically." And I can see that coming around and the importance of it and everything. And then the governor signs this executive order that says that all passenger vehicles sold in California starting in 2035 are going to be electric vehicles, and we're transitioning our heavy duty and medium duty fleets and buses and all at the same time. And all of a sudden, the first thing I think when he signs that executive order, other than this is going to help my day job a lot, was, wait a minute, what did I just sign up for? So I know that our chair had no idea that the governor was going to sign this order, and then road user charge was going to become so incredibly important so quickly.
Or did I?
Or did you? Yes. Now, certainly, I have found that we have a really wonderful group of advisory committee members who have been working on this for many years and have gone through an entire process of really putting their nose to the grindstone and identifying, with the help of Hannah, of course, of identifying what the key issues are and what needs to be addressed and what the concerns are with moving forward. And I think we all recognize, maybe we disagree a little bit on the urgency in terms of when this needs to be put into place, but we all recognize it does. And we are all a little concerned about how to address these complex issues and roll this out in a way that the public can support and participate in enthusiastically, instead of looking at it as some kind of bait and switch to raise more money out of them in taxes and fees. I don't think that's the intent, and I don't think it should be. I do have to clarify for Lauren that my participation is not pay at the pump in this pilot, but more on the EV side, since I don't purchase a lot of gasoline for my electric vehicle. And I think I'm going to be required to take pictures of my odometer and turn it into you. And I'm looking forward to that starting up and trying to be part of the solution with the pilot. It's good news that we got Caltrans secured this new grant from the federal government to do some additional pilot work. There are just some really complex issues and needs here. I fully support the list of issues and priorities that Hannah has identified for us and for our technical advisory committee here. And actually, I'm kind of glad that I agreed to chair it, because I get to be in the observe and be part of this exciting kind of process. And I've never really hesitated to take on complicated problems, and this has become yet another one in my quiver. So thank you. And I do want to ask Lauren to make sure that both our technical advisory committee and the commission staff are at the table when you implement this new pilot project that just got funded. We'd like to be part of that and ask that you allow us to do that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. I want to call on Commissioner Inman, and then I want to call on Mitch Weiss.
Thank you for the presentation. Lauren, I have a question. We were blessed in California to have the California Trucking Association participate in our first pilot, as opposed to the American Trucking Association, which has chosen not to. And if we look at our revenue numbers, a significant number or a significant amount of dollars come in from our heavy duty, our light, medium, heavy duty sector. And those numbers are up, I think 27% was the fund estimate yesterday, probably from the migration to e-commerce. So I would hope that we would encourage a way to include our freight sector partners in developing this so that they own the ultimate success of it. So I didn't hear any mention in your description of outreach that's been done. Bring them to the table. The men and women that do that work probably have some really good ideas. And I think I don't want to lose the opportunity that they've been at the table previously. And obviously they're very busy, but we need to find a way to have them engaged early and often and part of our success. And then the question I have really goes to item 74, but I know that we historically have not charged for power when it's at a rest area because of the federal rules. And also I believe at the Caltrans locations, we don't charge for power. So if a person's not paying for power, we probably don't have the mechanism to charge them at the pump, so to speak, or at the charger, at wherever they get their fuel. So I think we have to be cognizant of that as well as we go through. So those are comments, not really questions.
Great. Well, thank you for that, Commissioner. I think you hit on a very important point. In fact, you hit on one of our key unanswered questions, which is what does road charge look like for commercial vehicles? It's really fantastic. There's some work currently being done by the Eastern Transportation Coalition, actually doing a trucking pilot right now, which is they're highly involved with an industry roundtable on that front. So we are watching their work very closely and hope to build upon it. CTA continues to be a very important partner. They're still a member of the TAC. And we are very much interested in getting industry advice and feedback and making sure that a road charge system for commercial vehicles is something that works for the industry.
Well, especially on the I-95 corridor, those truckers have been paying, you know, they might be in 6 different states in half a day. So I think they're used to the multiple state jurisdictions. So yeah, just build on our success as we move forward, please.
Great. Okay, next is Executive Director Mitch Weiss.
Yeah, I have 3 questions. One was, you mentioned a road charge comparison tool. What rate is that using? What is it assuming for the road charge rate?
Right. So the calculator that we have on our website actually has several rates that an individual can choose from, also with a note saying that the rate ultimately would be set by the legislature. So you have the option of choosing a rate of 2 cents, 3 cents, or 4 cents to do your calculation. For the pilot, FYI, we are currently using a rate of 2.2 cents per mile.
Okay, thank you. And one of your slides, the one that talked about the state fleet pilot, it has a note that, but you believe it would be best upon legislative approval. I mean, wouldn't that be required no matter what for that?
Right. So I'm not referring to a pilot. What I'm referring to is, should the legislature choose to vote to transition the state to a full road charge program, it is our opinion that the state fleet would be very useful as an initial stage of implementation.
Okay, yeah, I guess I didn't get that from that bullet. And then can you pull up Brandy attachment A, the graph? So Lauren, while Brandy's pulling that up, one of the things I've heard you say in a couple of venues is that the administration believes as long as we have an a road charge for electric vehicles by 2035, we won't. And I don't remember the exact wording used. You lose, a lot of significant revenue, a lot of revenue. Are we coming up with that attachment on the slide? On the PowerPoint?
We're working on it.
Okay. Well, I can wait a moment. Okay, fantastic. So this was several forecasts. Line 4 is the mean. So, admittedly, we don't know, but that's it's probably as good a guess as we're going to have. Line 5 is our purchasing power. So just, I don't know all the details of all the points, but just looking at the area under the curve that you would lose between line 4 and line 5 and purchasing power between now and 2035, that looks to me about roughly $15 billion, which would be almost 3 years of SB1 funding. So that would seem to be really significant and really put some urgency on the fact that we need to be more, started on that. So I wonder what does the administration feel about that? Are we okay with losing the 15 billion, or how do you feel?
I think that our wonderful CFO, Stephen Keck, would of course not want to lose 15 billion. It would keep him up at night. But, looking at various projections, we keep in mind that going out so many years is a difficult job. I think the approach of the Meta Institute is very wise in that they've taken, a look at various scenarios because there are so many factors. I would point to the numbers that were released in the governor's January budget, which do not go out quite as far, but which are quite positive. With the impact of ZEV revenue, it's a complex thing because it depends on uptake rates, but it's also, SB1 did give us some breathing room with the addition of the $100 annual fee and also the TIF revenue as well. So there's different factors driving there. How they will play out is a complex question, as I think is reflected by the multiple scenarios that the Meta Institute chose to do. At this time, relying on, again, the Department of Finance numbers, we feel that we're in a reasonably good place at the moment.
I see that Stephen Keck has his hand raised to speak. So, Mitch, have you concluded your comments, or can we have a little bit more of a back and forth?
Oh, yeah, let's have some back and forth.
Great. Stephen, would you join us for the conversation?
Thank you, Chair. I believe I'm not a panelist, so you will not be able to see my picture today, which is good because I don't have a tie on. But I would like to just chime in and add a little bit to what Lauren was saying. And certainly, Mitch, your point is valid. Any revenue losses that occur will be permanent revenue losses. We'll not be able to get that money back. The statement that we're making is the urgency lies with getting the EVs onto a road charge as soon as we can, right? So what we're saying is once we get them on board, EVs on board, the long-term impacts don't exist anymore. And I think that's why we're saying in the plan, start with state vehicles and then EVs are very next. And as long as we are getting to that next step prior to what we really can consider to be a very significant shift around 2035, then the long-term impacts are no longer there.
I completely appreciate the way you said probably the first 75% of that, and would agree with that part. But I think the longer, I think we're in agreement. Let's start with state vehicles. We need to move quickly to electric vehicles. I'm just concerned about the idea that quickly might be they're actually not starting till 2035. So thank you.
Does that conclude your remarks, Mitch?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Does we have any other commissioners who wish to speak? I see that we have no other public comment on this item. Okay. Hearing none, we thank you for your in-depth presentation. I had actually one question, and that was, what was the size of the federal grant received to study this?
Right, it is a $2.15 million grant. 50% is a match by the state.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time, and we look forward to our continued dialogue. And again, thank you for your leadership, Commissioner Liu, on this item. Next, we're going to go to, this is an action item. So we need to take a vote because there were the recommendations. Hannah, would you mind repeating the recommendations as you listed them so we can approve this?
Sure. So we recommend that the TAC and CTC staff continue to support SB 339. We recommend that the TAC work with the Mineta Transportation Institute to research a road charge rate. We recommend that the TAC consider privacy and data security and how those might be incorporated into a road charge program. We recommend that the TAC research road charge implementation milestones. And we request that the CTC staff and the TAC be partners at the table and participate in the development of Caltrans and CalSTA's research plan and federal grant.
So I'll move that we approve that approach to road user charge.
And all of the recommendations just listed?
Yes.
Great. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you very much. Douglas, could you please read the roll?
Commissioner Alvarado,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Eager,
Aye.
Commissioner Grisby,
Aye.
Commissioner Guardino.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Inman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kehoe,
Aye.
Commissioner Liu,
Aye.
Commissioner Martinez,
Aye.
Commissioner Tavaloni, Chair Norton.
Aye.
The motion is approved.
Thank you so much. We are now on item 74, the zero emission vehicle charging infrastructure, progress to date and plans to meet state goals. Bridget, could you introduce the team?
Yes, thanks, Chair Norton. Commissioners, tab 74 is an informational item. Elizabeth John, Manager for the Office of Advanced Fuels and Vehicle Technologies at the California Energy Commission. Ellen Greenberg, Deputy Director for Sustainability at Caltrans. And Albert Cox, Deputy Division Chief for Design at Caltrans, will provide an update on zero-emission charging infrastructure in California. I will ask that you reserve your questions until we are through both presentations. And with that, I will turn it over to Elizabeth.
Good morning, Chair Norton and Commissioners. My name is Elizabeth John, and I'm the manager of the Advanced Fuels and Vehicle Technologies Office from the California Energy Commission. Thank you for having me here today to discuss the Energy Commission's zero-emission charging infrastructure progress to date and to give an overview of our plans to meet statewide goals. Next slide, please. First, to provide some context, there are a lot of very exciting things happening in California in zero-emission vehicles. As I've heard you all discuss briefly today, Governor Newsom recently enacted Executive Order N7920, which requires all new passenger vehicles, existing drayage trucks, and off-road vehicles and equipment to be zero emission by 2035, and all new medium and heavy-duty vehicles to be zero emission by 2045. The governor's executive order expanded upon our existing targets, which included 1.5 million zero-emission vehicles on the road by 2025 and 5 million zero-emission vehicles on the road by 2030. Next slide, please. And we have been making good progress on the vehicle side, as you can see in this slide. This graph gives you a sense of where we are in terms of zero-emission vehicle adoption and where we need to go to meet our policies. The green triangles show our 1.5 and 5 million vehicle targets, and the green star shows the governor's executive policy goals equaling about 8 million zero-emission vehicles. The blue line reflects the CEC's transportation demand forecast based on current vehicle sales, while the yellow line shows where we need to go based on our aggressive policy goals. The fact that there is a difference between the two means that we need stronger approaches to address hurdles to ZEV adoption. Next slide, please. Infrastructure is the key factor here, as prospective car buyers' largest concern is being able to reliably charge a zero-emission vehicle. This is especially true for those that do not have reliable home charging, which often occurs in multi-family housing. When looking at consumer concerns for purchasing a battery electric vehicle, a recent survey found that lack of infrastructure is one of the biggest concerns of consumers in relation to zero-emission vehicle adoption. Next slide, please. To date, the CEC has provided over $180 million to fund over 11,000 chargers. Cali VIP is the largest CEC funding program, which supports light-duty charging infrastructure. Additionally, this past summer, the CEC released over $100 million in solicitations to fund medium-duty, heavy-duty, zero-emission vehicle infrastructure. As part of that funding, the CEC is starting a block grant project similar to Cali VIP for MDHD ZEV infrastructure. The block grant will be designed to speed up the deployment and installation of infrastructure in order to provide more accessible and reliable electric charging to future MDHD zero-emission fleets. CEC has also funded charging to ensure that along major corridors, there is fast charging at least every 50 miles, and in most places, no more than 25 miles between fast chargers. This network is nearly complete and should give EV drivers the confidence to move around the state. I would also like to briefly mention that we have been doing a lot of work in hydrogen refueling infrastructure as well to meet California's ZEV goals. However, that is not what I'm focusing on here today. Next slide, please. While the CEC has made progress in accelerating the deployment of EV charging, CEC models project that California will need 968,000 shared private and public chargers in 2030 to support our 5 million light-duty ZEV goal and over 1.5 million chargers to support our 8 million light-duty ZEV goal. Next slide, please. Additionally, in the medium and heavy-duty sector, preliminary modeling suggests that 157,000 DC fast chargers will be needed. These chargers will require a high amount of power, ranging from 50 kW all the way up to 350 kW. For context, the average light-duty level 2 charger is about 10 kW, so the amount of power needed, along with the time it will take to make the necessary upgrades to get power to sites, could be significant. Next slide, please. Aside from funding chargers, the CEC is also conducting a number of analyses to assist California in addressing barriers and better meeting its ZEV goals. SB 1000 directs the CEC to assess whether plug-in electric vehicle charging infrastructure is disproportionately deployed by population density, geographical area, or population income level. Staff released its first report in December 2020 and will continue to conduct infrastructure deployment assessments year after year to inform CEC investments and public deployment. Additionally, the CEC has published the AB 2127 report, which considers the current status of charging infrastructure as well as the future need for it. The existing charger section covers CEC tracking of current and planned installations. The future charger section covers several quantitative charging infrastructure demand models that the CEC has developed through contracts. EVI Pro 2 covers general light-duty electrification. Road Trip covers long-distance trips. Wired covers ride-hailing trips. And Heavy Load covers medium and heavy-duty electrification. Future analysis will cover off-road, port, and airport electrification. Staff will continue to conduct these assessments and will publish reports and updates. Additional collected data, such as charger and grid upgrade costs, will be key as we continue installing infrastructure. These assessments will be very important to addressing key bottlenecks for meeting California's ZEV goals and increasing access to EV infrastructure for all. Next slide, please. As ZEV sales increase and the market moves beyond early adopters to mainstream consumers, additional public investment is essential to addressing more challenging infrastructure needs. It is feasible for California to meet its aggressive goals, but we will need to do the following. Continue public support for charger deployment using public funds to leverage private funds and eventually transition to a self-sustaining private market. Continue the quantitative modeling efforts to project the quantities, locations, and load curves of chargers needed to meet statewide travel demand, including for NDHD vehicles. Support innovative charging solutions and financing mechanisms. Support local efforts to prepare for transportation electrification, including planning efforts. Ensure equitable distribution of charger deployment throughout the state. Align charging with renewable generation and grid needs with a focus on vehicle grid integration technologies and policies. And prioritize standardized charger connectors and communication protocols. Next slide, please. Lastly, the Zero Emission Vehicle Dashboard, launched by the CEC's Energy Assessments Division, contains data and information about EV chargers statewide. For example, the screenshot of the site on this slide contains the number of EV chargers as of the end of 2020. 70,479 chargers have been installed, with 40% being public chargers. The dashboard is interactive, and you can search for locations by county, metropolitan statistical area, or zip code. The vehicle counts come from DMV data, while the infrastructure data comes from a mix of the US DOE's Alternative Fuels Data Center and quarterly surveys conducted by the CEC. And I've shared a link on the slide so that you can have access to this information. Next slide, please. I know that I've covered a lot here in the short period of time, so I've included some additional information and references to our reports in the appendix of my slides, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And I'll mention that those appendix slides are accessible via the CPC's website. Next, Ellen Greenberg and Albert Cox will provide a coordinated presentation on Caltrans's efforts to advance ZEV charging infrastructure. Take it away, Ellen and Albert.
Thank you, Bridget, and good morning, commissioners. Thank you for inviting the department to update you on our ZEV efforts along with Elizabeth. I think the coordination is important, and it's been very valuable to us. I'm Ellen Greenberg, Caltrans Deputy Director for Sustainability. I'm joined this morning by Albert Cox, Deputy Division Chief for Landscape Architecture. Albert will be delivering the bulk of our presentation. I just have a few things before I hand it over. So first, as I believe you're all aware, the topics we're touching on are evolving in real time. And just yesterday, FHWA Acting Administrator Stephanie Pollack announced that FHWA will soon issue guidance on how transportation departments can use the federal right-of-way surrounding our highways to set up charging stations for electric vehicles. And they are also anticipating addressing some other issues relating to EVs. And these issues are key to our ability to support the transition to electric vehicles overall. Also yesterday, GoBiz convened one of a series of meetings on what is informally called the ZEV Brain Trust within the administration. Both Caltrans and the Energy Commission participated, and we are using that effort to make sure we're coordinating across the administration to support the Biden administration's efforts and gain maximum benefit from those new federal efforts. So I want to very briefly introduce the Commission to Caltrans' 5-part ZEV program. You have fact sheets along with the book item, and Albert and I will be happy to answer questions following his presentation. So the department has a 5-part program, fleet transition, and that is led by our Division of Equipment, and I want to recognize Division Chief Bob Myers as a real leader and a champion in this area, so I hope in future he might have an opportunity to present. So fleet transition is part 1. This is, sorry, next slide, please. You'll see the just the 5 parts of our program identified. So fleet transition, workplace charging. In workplace charging, we're coordinating closely with DGS, so shout out to them as well for their leadership on this. Zero emission transit and rail, you have a fact sheet from Caltrans Division of Rail and Mass Transportation. And then we have kind of our catch-all partnership program, which includes our support for research and our medium and heavy duty work led by the Division of Transportation program, and then public charging, which is the focus of Albert's presentation. Last, I just want to note that while SHOP funds have supported the department's public ZEV infrastructure work, which Albert will be talking about, we have successfully secured non-state funding for several of these initiatives and several of our investments, including the solar fast charging in District 5. And longer term, our preferred approach is to have ZEV infrastructure privately funded and operated through partnerships with commercial providers or investor-owned utilities. So that is one of the issues we hope will be addressed by the Biden administration in the new rules. With that, I'll turn it over to Albert Cox, Deputy Division Chief for Land Department. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. I'm Albert Cox, Caltrans Deputy Division Chief of Design and Landscape Architecture. Next slide, please.
The audio is really tough right now, so I was wondering if we could maybe get a little bit more audio.
Is that better?
I think you're going to need to speak a little bit more closely to the microphone.
Okay. Is that better? No?
Not terrific.
I can switch my.
Okay. Can we try it now?
Yeah, I'm not able to. I was going to try and switch to my camera mic, but.
Okay, if we're not able to resolve the audio difficulty, I can present Albert's slides.
Okay, that may be best.
Albert, why don't I get started, and if you can connect successfully, you can jump in anytime. So let's try that. Bridget, next slide, please. So, of course, you've been hearing frequent references to the governor's executive orders that are guiding our ZEV work. We also want to flag the ZEV action plan that was released by Governor Brown, first in 2016 and then 2018. And that plan is what set us, Caltrans, on a path to address gaps in the fast charging network. And this was the point that spurred us to installing the fast chargers on Caltrans right-of-way for public use. Next slide, please. So it's this fast charging and network, our contributions to the network, that are the focus of this presentation. On the left side of the slide, you'll see one of the working maps that we used in determining the sites that would ultimately be the sites of our fast charging investment. And really what we're trying to highlight here is the coordination we had with the Energy Commission during the initial planning. This was very shortly after I came on board in 2016. So the aim of this was very much to complement private investment. This was something we discussed with the Commission previously over the course of several meetings on this topic. So we have tried to complement and to provide that fast charging in locations that were not receiving private investment. And on the right hand, you'll see the map that includes locations where we're actually making the investments in fast charging on Caltrans right of way for public use. Next slide, please.
Hello, Ellen. Can you hear me better now? I switched my mic.
Yes,
that is better.
Much better.
I would be happy to have you take over, Albert.
Okay. You're doing a great job. Thanks. So next slide, please. So the public EV charging effort consists of 11 projects at 37 locations. 31 of the 37 are in disadvantaged communities or low-income communities. 28, as you can see, are in the safety roadside rest areas, 5 in maintenance stations, 2 at district offices, and 2 at park and ride lots. Next slide, please. Just as of a few minutes ago, we're up to 27 locations now operational. So we have another 10 locations to go, including what Ellen mentioned as what's being touted as the nation's first functioning solar fast chargers at 3 rest areas in District 5. They're depicted here. The remaining 12 projects, or 12 locations, actually I guess 10 locations now, have been experiencing delays in construction due to supply chain disruption related to COVID impacts, and the utility service providers working on fire-related activities, not allowing them to get to our upgraded locations. Next slide, please. Caltrans faces 2 challenges for providing public charging. First, Caltrans is unable to recover maintenance and utility costs for public chargers within our right-of-way, including our safety roadside rest areas. The reason for this is that there are state and federal regulations that prevent Caltrans from charging these fees. As Ellen mentioned, there's maybe some movement on the federal side to help us with that effort coming up. Another challenge we have is Caltrans has experienced some pushback from private industry for providing free charging in our right-of-ways. The industry's concerns are that free charging disincentivizes private industry from growing their own ZEV fueling. Next slide, please. So looking to the future, perhaps the best approach for public charging would be to establish partnerships for properties outside of the operational right-of-way in areas such as park and ride lots or other ancillary properties. Park and ride lots are typically near highways, making them an attractive site for private investment. Perhaps partnerships or pursuing partnerships would allow us to allow private providers to provide and supply and maintain these chargers, and relieve Caltrans from acting as a fuel provider. Technology has also advanced since designing these projects. Battery storage would now allow us to approach these sites differently now. Not only is solar an option for these fast charging battery locations, but in general, the battery storage usage would allow us to change and reduce the size and type of utility service connections required for these remote sites. These fast chargers require, a high-level charging system where if we integrate these new battery technologies, we can use many of the same existing services connections that are already there. And so that would help reduce the cost of installing new facilities. Next slide, please. Thank you for the opportunity to update the Commission on our zero-emission vehicle efforts.
Thank you very much. And now that both presentations have been complete, I want to call on some commissioners who wish to speak. First, we're going to start with Vice Chair Alvarado, and then we're going to go to Commissioners Lee and Inman and Martinez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of observations. Number one, I'm very happy to see that we're finally standardizing the connections. Just one additional suggestion. When we were meeting with our brothers and sisters in Washington and Oregon on the vehicle mileage issue, that we all got together and we're trying to get it so that we use the same payment system. So if you get gas in Reading and then you get gas in Portland, it's seamless in the transaction. You don't have to, nobody's losing out. I would suggest that we do the same thing with the connectors. Get together with our folks in Washington and Oregon and make sure that we're all using the same charging system and connection so that there's no issues throughout the whole West Coast. As I mentioned early yesterday, we need to get some sort of, and I see we're well on our way, we need to get some sort of environmental relief or a negative deck on the installation of the chargers. We ended up last year when Kome came for one of the first charging stations on completely inside the footprint of a rest area. We had to do a full-blown EIR. And that one charging station ended up costing us over $1 million. We're remodeling our facilities here. We're building 2 new facilities. They average about $10,000 a piece for us. So we should look at doing everything we can to keep the costs down. And one of the big drivers was that full-blown EIR within the footprint of a rest area. Future projects for the state, just as we do with fiber optic, we need to include conduits to the curb so that we can use the existing building transformers. And if it's a state building, we should make sure that those transformers are big enough to supply the power to the charging stations. And last, sadly, because we, as a private party, we installed charging stations, and the decision was made to not put up a gate, to have them available to the public. Somebody's car got broken into and they wanted us to pick up the tap. So what we're going to need to do is provide some kind of liability protection as we go through future partnerships with private parties. Otherwise, to solve the problem, we put up a gate. And now it's only for employee use rather than public use until we get some sort of a liability protection to keep the gate open at night. Just a few suggestions. You're doing a great job. The next thing to look at as we develop the infrastructure is find out what kind of infrastructure we need for hydrogen and do as much pre-planning with that as we can so that we don't have to go back and disturb a brand new street, parking lot, landscaping issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I want to call on Commissioner Liu.
Thank you, Chair Norton, and thank you, Vice Chair Alvarado, for those valuable practical suggestions. And thank you, Elizabeth John, for providing the answers to my initial set of questions. I very much appreciate that, so I won't ask those again. But one of the things I did ask about was the cities that haven't fulfilled a legislative deadline, a 2017 legislative deadline, so this is pre-COVID, to streamline their permitting processes. And I'm just wondering, of those 269 of the 540 municipalities who haven't streamlined their permitting processes, whether you guys have an idea of which of those have any legitimate reason for a 4-year delay in doing it. I just think that these laggards need to come around, and I'm very concerned that they haven't done so.
I have maybe Elizabeth will also contribute.
Anyone who can answer it.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I don't have a straight up answer, but this is something that is being addressed through GoBiz, and we had a conversation just yesterday about kind of carrot versus stick. And right now they're focusing on a carrot and recognition effort with the ZEV permitting Olympics. And they have spurred a number of jurisdictions to completion, and they're watching this pretty carefully, I think, and trying to understand what the levers are that can be moved to get this get things unstuck. So just wanted to flag the fact that it is across the administration an issue we're collaborating on, and that I think GoBiz is leading, but Elizabeth may have more information.
Yeah, that was exactly what I would have said also. I'll just add that specifically under our CEC programs, for example, Cali VIP, we do account for permit streamlining as status as a factor of consideration for funding. And so I expect that we would include that metric in our future MDHD awards as well, to incentivize jurisdictions to get that permit streamlining in place.
Yeah, I think we're quickly realizing that the vehicle technology, when it comes to battery electric, light duty, and actually medium and heavy duty, that's really not the issue so much as it is the infrastructure. So this endeavor is vitally important for us to get to where we want to go. And I saw that Albert showed, I think, the District 5 beam EV arc technology. It was formerly called Envision Solar, is a company based in San Diego. Can you explain what that is and what the benefits are to this rather innovative way of charging vehicles?
Yes, I think I can address that. So, when we initially started this in 2017, we were told there's no way we can get solar to do fast charging. But the District 5 team persisted in looking and partnering industry to make it a reality. And so what this allows for is by doing what we call daisy chains, solar panels that you saw in the picture, to allow for us to use solar as a fast charge opportunity. And along with doing that too, there's solar that charging system set up. So also an emergency plug in solar.
We can't hear you, Mr. Cox.
Yeah,
We're losing
still having
our.
some core. Yeah, I'll try jumping in again. So I think what Albert was mentioning was that when the program started, we looked into the opportunities for solar fast charging, and it did not appear that there was technology available. However, the District 5 folks, the District 5 is headquartered in San Luis Obispo. They worked with Monterey Bay Air Pollution Control District, where there were some terrific leaders, and they were looking into kind of the sort of the most forward of the solar technologies. We ended up partnering with them. They actually funded the purchase of the solar array. They worked with the vendor and manufacturer at Envision, and with District 5 staff identified this location along, in the Central Coast at the Camp Roberts Rest area. So we consider it a pilot. We are very interested in the potential expansion of solar fast charging. There are other benefits to having these units because there's battery storage units that could conceivably also provide benefit during emergency situations in terms of power storage. I've been recently in touch with one of Elizabeth's colleagues, Mark Wenzel, about doing some staff share between Caltrans and the Energy Commission, because candidly, they have technical skills that we don't have. We want to get as much benefit as we can from those skills. And one of the questions I put on our list was, what's the fuller potential for use of solar fast charging? What are the locations and the opportunities that we should be looking into? So very much, in our work plan going forward to investigate future opportunities.
Great, thank you. I just encourage people to take a look at the Beam EV arc technology. It used to be called Envision Solar. It's really fascinating and shortcuts or avoids a lot of the permitting and infrastructure issues that come along with trying to get these EV chargers in a lot of ways. So I'm glad to see you guys are doing a pilot with it, and I think we really should explore whether it's viable for other locations.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that Albert did mention, where we have had delays in installation, a number of those delays have been associated with the extension of power to our sites. And in fact, just during Albert's comments, I got an email from District 9 saying they were just able to open one of their public locations and one of their workplace locations. So it's coming along, but the infrastructure, the electric power infrastructure has been an obstacle to getting implementation happening.
Thank you.
Yes. We're going to recognize Commissioner Martinez and then Commissioner Kehoe.
Thank you, Chairwoman Norton. Just a quick question. As it pertains to the levels of charging, I know there's different costs associated with that. And so for local municipalities, as they move towards, obviously, moving towards electrifying their own fleet, but also for the public sector, as we know the different levels of charging and how long it takes. I have an electrical vehicle, and unfortunately here in Long Beach, when I am here, and in parts of downtown Los Angeles, I can, it's most of the charging that is available takes a fairly long time. And sometimes I'm only there for an hour or two. And so I'm always looking for a Tesla supercharger if I can to get my car charged immediately, make phone calls and meetings. But that's very rare that I'm able to find that. And so, as we move forward, and I want to commend your presentation and ensuring that there's equity. But I think as we move towards infrastructure for EVs, it's the level of charging and how much time we actually have. And so just see if you could expand on that, because I know personally I've suffered. I've had an electrical vehicle for a year now as of last month. And it has been challenging for me. And so I'm sure it's been challenging for others, that I have to travel quite some distance to actually get fully charged immediately, depending on where I'm going.
Elizabeth, do you want to take that one, or would you like me to comment?
I'll just say absolutely, that's absolutely something that we consider. I think a lot of our focus has been on early adopters, and as we expand the market and all new vehicles are becoming zero emission, it's absolutely something that we'll continue to look into and focus on and understand about drivers and how they charge and where to put those chargers.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Kehoe.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the team for the presentation, Elizabeth and Albert and Ellen Greenberg. Good to see you. You've been tilling the fields of electric vehicles for a lot of years. I understand and agree with so many of your different points of how to expand consumer adoption of electric vehicles. And I want to concentrate on consumer adoption because I think there's a lot of upside with transit and with getting around a large factory site, maybe school districts, things like that. But let's just talk about regular people driving regular cars. And when all is said and done, how you charge, where you charge, does it cost money? Do you have to sign up for a subscription? What does a charging station even look like? That kind of knowledge is very weak among regular car consumers. And a car purchase is a very emotional decision. After your house, it's the thing that most expresses, what you can afford, status, things like that. So EVs are a vast unknown for most consumers. And I continue to think after all these years, I started at the Electric Vehicle Collaborative in January of 2013. So, over 8 years ago, and I'm no longer there, but the issues are still the same. What are we doing to address consumer confidence in a real way? Are we just waiting for critical mass as more people start to drive a vehicle, EV? Consumers will become more aware if they see them around. I see charging stations because I know what to look for, and oftentimes they're not fully engaged, or they're not fully engaged because cars are parking there because they want the space and they're not charging, you know, at shopping centers and things like that, where they can get away with it. And then on long drives, of course, no one wants to stop for, you know, 45 minutes to recharge. So these are the decisions that people just turn them off to electric vehicles. And it's got to be more than a publicity campaign. How do we build confidence that the cars will work in people's daily lives? And Ellen, maybe you want to tackle that one?
Well, I'll try. It's a big one to tackle. I mean, again, I think that the work across the administration is addressing this, and not just the Energy Commission, certainly not just Caltrans. And now that we have partners of the federal administration that are going to be focused on this as well, I think we'll see more action. A few things I can highlight. There were some comments earlier about Washington and Oregon. One of the initiatives that Federal Highways has been involved in is the designation of alternate fuel corridors. And this relates to signage as well as to the availability of charging in the corridors. So that is one of the contexts in which we work with neighboring states, actually also British Columbia, in order to not just bring charging, but bring awareness, bring signage. So that's one piece of the puzzle, but it is obviously a complex one. We have both NGO partners, as you know, Commissioner Kehoe, from your involvement in Velez, and also academic and research partners addressing this issue. I have found the work of the UC Davis STEPS program to be extremely helpful in highlighting issues around awareness and needs of regular drivers. And that has, you know, provided information that's a foundation, can be a foundation for our actions. I do want to just respond to the comments about charging speed. You know, while our focus right now is more on availability, speed is a critical issue, and it's a critical issue for industry as well. So I do expect that it's going to be an area of considerable innovation, and I'm sure folks are aware of all different technologies being looked at, including in-road charging, charging through catenary wires, particularly for freight vehicles. So this is an area that's getting increasing attention, and I'll hope to see some real breakthroughs as we've seen in battery technology.
Thank you. If I could just, the thing that I find so frustrating is the cars are great. They're no trouble at all. It's just like driving a regular car. Although I have a hybrid, a Chevy Volt, it's always filled up. I charge overnight on a regular wall plug in my garage, no extra installation, no extra wiring. But still people like, I don't know about that. They just kind of balk. And so I think we need to somehow demonstrate that they're great cars and that they'll work for you daily life, where they're, you know, if you've got, you know, less than a 40-mile commute, you're going to be fine. And in some cars, of course, with the longer range, you can go much farther than that. But for most drivers, even a small capacity vehicle is going to get them where they want to go on a daily basis. So keep up the good work, and gradually, Californians are early adopters, so it should improve.
Yes. I do want to recognize our ex officio member, Senator Newman, who has been with us for a number of items during this meeting. Do you have any comments on this item?
No, I appreciate being recognized, Chair Norton, and I took Latin in high school, and I know it means when you're new, don't speak. I think that's what it translates. But I will say, so, you know, I've been an EV owner since 2012. I think Commissioner Kehoe and others have hit the nail right on the head. So, Ms. Greenberg, I appreciate your comments as well. I do think we're making progress. These things proceed on kind of an exponential curve, and we're well on the way up. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Finally, I'd just like to say, you know, my car is plugged in outside here at the LA Clean Tech Incubator on a solar charger as well. And what I was wondering is that we've had a number of conversations about the need to grow the grid. And that grid security, I saw that only 14% were talking about grid security, but I was wondering when that survey was taken, because I think after Texas and after our wildfires, I think grid security and grid abundance is now top of mind in many other ways. And it certainly is top of mind on the federal level right now. Can you talk a little bit about the ambitiousness of the number of chargers and the goal of growing the grid, and then also how Governor Newsom's $1.5 billion for EVs rolls into this, and what funds can be used where? I'll give that to Ellen.
Okay, well, I'm going to toss this to Elizabeth because I know that the CEC has been working on grid integration, vehicle grid integration issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think a really, really important piece of this is going to be vehicle grid integration. And so we recognize bidirectional charging as important for resilience, cost-effective grid operation, attaining the clean energy goals of SB 100. So vehicle to grid is the most advanced form of bidirectional charging, where a vehicle directly provides services to the grid, and vehicle to building and vehicle to home are also important factors that we're looking into. So we do have a vehicle grid integration roadmap, which we will be putting out an update to in the near future. And I think this technology is still really in early development, but our goals as we're planning is to future-proof the grid and prepare for when the technology is commercialized and fully functional with the grid, so that we can make sure that we're preserving grid reliability, ensuring vehicles are charged with the cleanest and cheapest electricity possible, and making sure that we have enough power for all our energy needs. And I think you had a second question.
It's Governor Newsom's $1.5 billion that he identified to go towards ZEV vehicles and trucks, and how chargers fit into the mix.
Oh, absolutely, yes. So at least on the Energy Commission side, a big focus for us is filling the gaps. So filling the gaps for charging on the light duty side, the numbers I showed earlier in my presentation show that there will be a big need for charging on the light duty side. And then also expanding our range on the medium duty, heavy duty side. We have not put as much focus into MDHD, and at least for the next 3 years under our Clean Transportation Program, we've added a lot of funding for MDHD, with the hopes that as we start converting vehicles to zero emission, that private industry takes over and fleets begin converting more rapidly. So there will be, if that $1.5 billion becomes available, there will be a big focus on electric charging.
Fantastic. Well, with that, we have no public comment on this item, so I believe all of our commissioners have been heard. And I want to say thank you to all who participated. We are going to take a short break, and we are going to come back at 11:05. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. And we'll be back at 11:05 on item 75.